Hello, and welcome to Perfectly Seasoned, the podcast about all things culinary. I'm your host and personal chef, Greg Strahm. Today, we'll be speaking about personal chefs and COVID-19. Are we considered necessary and essential businesses? Stay tuned. On today's podcast, I'd like to address how the COVID-19 crisis has affected our industry as personal chefs. My guest today is Phyllis Krupp. Phyllis is also a personal chef and a colleague. We both live and work here in South Florida. So I thought it would be interesting to get another perspective on what we do and how we can stay relevant and working during this time. Welcome to the podcast, Phyllis.
Thank you. Thanks. This is exciting. I'm happy to be here and excited to talk about what we do and how we evolve through this.
Right. Well, I have been wanting to meet you and speak with you for quite a while because I follow you all the time on Facebook. But it turns out that we've actually met in the past. And I thought, she looks familiar, but why do I know her?
Yeah, you do. We actually cooked together, kind of, sort of.
We did. Well, several years ago, I did I donated an interactive wine dinner for 10 as a prize at one of our local Chamber of Commerce fundraising events. And Phyllis was one of the 10 guests. So, as I recall, it turned out to be quite a fun evening.
It sure was. It was a great evening. Yeah. And I'm still friendly with the gals that were there, and they're going to get a kick out of this.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, we'll have to get them to listen to the podcast.
Absolutely.
Well, let's just get right down to it. According to the USPCA, the United States Personal Chefs Association, of which both of us are members, and there are an estimated 9,000 private chefs working in the U.S. today. And about 90% of those actually prepare meals in a client's home. What does it mean for us as personal chefs in this current COVID climate?
Yeah, it's definitely been a conundrum for me. I know that there's a lot of different people doing what we do on a lot of different levels. My business was mainly people's homes. I have to be honest with you. I didn't feel essential when this whole thing started. I felt like I was going to lose, my clients because they don't want me in their homes. It's hard to, get the ingredients that you need. How do you plan a menu? And then everything gets changed, people on special diets. But I did. I mean, I lost clientele. You kind of have to be creative.
Well, as personal chefs, the biggest question that has come up during this crisis is, are we really considered an essential business? And some would argue that we are, especially if they're the ones that are going to be losing, not be able to use a personal chef. But then there are others that consider us as a luxury.
A luxury, correct.
And technically speaking, we're not considered an essential business according to the guidelines that have been set forth during this crisis, because we're not a restaurant.
When you have somebody who's following a special diet, I'm not talking about, sauce on the side kind of diet. I'm talking about people who have severe allergies, food allergies, that really have to be careful. And even, look, I am doing my best to support local restaurants during this. But I tried calling a couple of places, and I had a couple of places tell me they wouldn't even put like tomato on the side because it was too busy. Yeah. So how is somebody who has, a severe allergy to something, going to make a special request. So yeah, in that sense, we are essential, I
Well,
think.
I have read a couple of articles that have addressed this, and I think there is some sort of, for lack of a better word, lobby that would allow us to become some essential, because if you do, like you say, let's say that you are celiac and you have to have
Right.
special meals prepared for you, or you're elderly and you can't prepare on
Correct.
your own, that to me is an essential business. So
Right.
uh, I, I don't think the answer has been fully formulated yet, but I think
Right.
it is on its way to being formulated. And I think within the next 6 months or so, I would like to hope that there is an answer for that question, because technically we are part of the uh, industry, the food
Yeah,
industry.
the small food business, absolutely.
So we'll have to,
Uh,
that's going to be a wait and see. We're going to have to wait and see.
well, it's interesting. We both are on that page. You know, we're both members of the USPCA, and I know I look on the page a lot. It seems that, some people are still working and, haven't really slowed down. Uh, and other people have kind of evolved. I put myself into the latter
Hmm.
category. I've kind of adjusted what I'm doing to fit what I see the needs are. And, so yeah, it will be interesting to see what's going on 6 months from now.
Well, let me ask you, do you normally cook on site for your clients, or do you cook off site and deliver? Or both?
No,
I mean,
I don't cook offsite and deliver because I'm not really allowed to. So I cook. I do most of my cooking in clients' homes.
hmm
I have done lots of catering jobs, but again, most of the prep and cooking is being done in my client's home.
hmm
And I have worked with other people's commissaries where I'm able to do some larger prep work
Oh, let
in
me
other
explain that
facilities.
for people who don't understand what that is, the commissary.
Yes.
It's all it is a professional kitchen that can be rented out, and they meet all of the local ordinances as far as food safety, and they rent the kitchen out for other professionals to utilize to cook, so that they can legally prepare food off-site and take it to their clients. So
Correct.
if in order for that to happen, they have to meet all of these requirements of the health
Health
department,
department. Yeah.
and because we're not allowed to prepare food in our kitchens unless the kitchens have been uh, uh, sanctioned by the health department.
However, now this is a great opportunity to segue into, since you're talking about the legal part of this, and I'm sure you know about it, but perhaps your listeners don't. There is something called the cottage food law. And the cottage food law allows you to cook out of your home kitchen. And I believe it has gone up to $50,000. You can sell up to $50,000 worth of food merchandise out of your home as long as it meets certain requirements. For example, you could do canned goods, like when you do jarred fruits and
Yes.
vegetables, things like that, pickled foods. And you can bake a lot of baked goods. So as long as they don't have to be refrigerated or heated.
Well,
So,
that the cottage law that answers questions also about if you've ever watched Shark Tank. These
mhm,
people who have developed these cookies or cakes out of their
right.
home kitchen,
Mrs. Fields.
those are all kitchens that would meet that up to a
Right.
certain. If they get up to a certain level, then they have to go into a
Correct.
commercial
Yeah.
kitchen. So
Right.
just so that you understand, because I know a lot of people have asked me, well, how do those people get away with cooking that food in their home and then selling it? And that's the reason they can do it. So
Well, and a lot of them started off totally illegally
yeah,
in their little Manhattan apartments,
yeah.
pumping out hundreds of thousands of cookies.
Well,
So, but
the
that's what I'm doing. I'm baking.
yeah.
I'm baking cakes. I'm doing these crazy candy covered birthday cakes,
I know I've seen some of
smaller
them on. I've
size.
seen them on Facebook. They are
Oh my
wild.
goodness. I just did a great Sweet 16 one yesterday for the same woman that won your fundraiser
Oh,
5 years
oh
ago.
wow,
It's,
wow.
yeah, so
Well,
it's very funny.
let me ask you because you I'm sure are very creative and are not afraid to reinvent yourself because that's how I think we. I don't know about you, but for me personally, I've reinvented myself so many times. I make
Oh, yeah.
Madonna look like an amateur. But the when you offer your services, do you have your business model? When you started your business model, was it specifically one type of personal chef service, or
You know, it's really funny because I don't know. I know you and I had spoken the other day, and I don't remember if I told you this or not. I have been cooking professionally, meaning getting paid for it, of course, for almost 30 years.
mm-hmm.
And but I've also been a single mom that raised, two kids on my own. So I've also had to have a real job. So I was a school teacher for many years, and then I would get fed up and leave and do something with food, and then I'd go back to teaching or I'd go into
Mm-hmm.
sales. I always had to do something where I had benefits and, so I've been cooking on the side for a long, long time. And through those years, I ended up with long-term jobs. I was an executive chef at a summer camp for 8 years. That was a lot of fun. I also was a Food Network finalist. In 2005, I was the Southeast finalist on the Build a Better Burger competition for the
Oh,
Food
we're going to
Network.
talk about that.
We
Believe
are,
me.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're going to talk
not
about
right
that.
now, but we're going to definitely
Yeah,
talk about
but
it.
but anyway, I've always done whatever it was that had to be done. So up until recently, very recently, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you how recently, this has become a full-time business.
Mm-hmm.
And up until that point, where I was just a little something personal chef services, I was torn between whether I want to bake or whether I want to cook. And I decided to focus on the cooking. My baking, which I call cupcakes because it's just such a perfect name,
That's a great name.
I have found that it's just more of a fit for me right now to just
Mm-hmm.
focus on my baking. So I'm feeling like there might be another little transition. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with all this?
Well,
With this,
that's true. That's true. But not unlike yourself, I also started out, and I'm totally self-taught. But I started when I was 15, and I turned 70 this year, so you can do the math.
Oh my goodness! Wow! Wow!
So I've been working in the food industry professionally since I was 18 years old, 19 years old, and it just sort of evolved over that. And I ended up doing it as an avocation as well because I wanted to go to New York and become a famous Broadway song and dance man.
Oh my! Me and you, we ran the same path. I just want you to know that. A couple of years
was
away
that you
from
at
each
the
other.
was that you at that audition? Damn you! You got that part and I didn't.
Yeah, except I ended up liking bartending better than Broadway.
Well, so that's how a lot of us in the show business industry, that's how we made our living. And it turns out that some of the places that I worked, front of house and back of house, were really fine restaurants. I worked at Tavern on the Green, both the front of house and the back of house. And let me tell you, that's being self-taught, there was a little bit of, I felt like the redheaded stepchild at the picnic because I was the only one in the kitchen who whose
Didn't
grandmother
come out of
taught,
culinary
yeah,
school. Yeah.
grandmothers taught me how to
Yeah.
cook. But it serves
You
me
know what?
well.
It's in your. That means it's in your fingers. Nobody had to teach you.
No,
It's
that's
in your
true.
blood.
So,
Yeah.
but after that, it's as you say. I had no intention of ever becoming a professional chef, and then I always felt a little guilty about not going to culinary school. And then I thought, you know what? I've been doing this since I was 18, and I'm at the time I was 68, and I said, and I just need to get my certification. So I decided to join the USPCA, and it turns out that they have a program where you can use your life experience to get credits, college credits, for what you have done. And it took me 3 months, but I'm not joking. It took me 3 months. I had to sit down and seriously recreate my life since I was 18 on
I'm
paper.
impressed. I'm impressed that you remember that far back.
Well,
If you're 70, you probably had some cloudy years in there.
there were some cloudy years, and especially, especially when I first moved to New York. But there's. I said this once before, and I really believe this. You can never underestimate the value of life experience in education, because had it not been for that, I wouldn't have been able to get my certification as as a certified personal chef.
Right,
So,
right.
so now I do in this. I'm calling this my third act. I am now a legitimate personal chef, and I can call myself that. And I feel like I've paid the dues. And now this COVID thing hit, and so here we all are inventing ourselves all over again.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's great that you have a new title,
well, yeah, the thing
a
is,
title that you could wear well.
I talked to you before about business model. Well, my business model is a little different because I chose not to become a personal chef for individual clients as much as organizations. So Tim and I do fundraising events for nonprofits. And so for me, I've come up with culinary fundraising events. So there are things like teaching cooking classes to museums and they charge their members to come and take the classes. So it's a slightly different business model. So I've never really had to worry so much about cooking in someone's kitchen.
Right, right.
But
So when you do those, so when you did your event, when you do these events, where do you do the cooking?
I do the cooking in the house because they come and the guests are actually the ones who are cooking their own dinner.
Like the one I attended. Like the
Yes.
one I attended. Okay,
Yeah.
that was great. I remember calling you after that to ask you about what you do as, when you and Tim did that, because I just thought that was a great thing to offer.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
unique.
It's
The wine, the
yeah.
education, the interaction. It's wonderful.
And it's an experience, and we find in especially fundraising, people want experiences rather than just to write a check. So that was basically our business model. And unfortunately, during this pandemic, all of our fundraising has just dried up because they can't get together. So I've decided, like you, to reinvent myself. And this is the one thing that's really important to me, and that is to be creative. And I honestly believe that I can develop a Zoom or some sort of a wine tasting or cooking classes would be easy because you're just demonstrating, just like on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But a wine tasting where you have a sommelier and you're on Zoom and you can have the organization work with them and to figure out how you get the wines, and everybody gets a bottle of each of the wines, and then you do the wine tasting that way. And I believe it can be done. And this is this thing about recreating yourself. You also have to find people of like minds. So
Right.
what you need to find out is the organization. You need someone in the organization who is willing to take a chance and be creative. And I think it's the same thing for you that you've moved, like you're doing cakes now. Somebody had needed a cake, and you were able to provide that for them. So you might have, or we both might have lost business at one end, but now we're reinventing it so that we've got
Correct.
something else to do. So I find that you're only limited by your own creativity, and
Right.
if
And
you
willingness to be a little flexible.
you have to be.
Absolutely.
And if you don't ask the question, you're never going to know what the answer might be. So you might as
Right.
well put yourself out there and go
Right.
for it.
Right.
Well, I want to talk about this Food Network thing. I know this was back in what, 2005 or something?
2005.
Five?
It was 2005 that the contest actually took place, but it didn't air on TV because it's on, I believe it's still on every June, the Build a Better Burger competition. And it aired the following June. And I remember we had a party at the house and I made little miniature versions because I was in the non-beef division. So do you want to hear the whole story,
I,
how it happened? Because it's really
I do.
crazy.
That just begs one question then. When you say the
Yes.
non-beef, was that a choice?
Yes, well, I entered in both categories, but I only got chosen my non-beef burger got chosen.
Oh, the only
Uh,
reason I ask is because Tim is a vegetarian, and he'll
well, it
eat,
was
or pescatarian, really. He'll eat seafood.
well, he'll eat my burger then if he
So,
likes tuna because I was a tuna burger. So yeah, so here's what happened. I um, I again, I've been catering and cooking for a long time, and one of the things that I made that was very popular was like a black and white seared sesame tuna, that I would slice and serve like sushi style,
hmm
beautiful platter. And so I had just moved back to Florida. My kids were with their dad for the summer. I was sitting at the computer, and I got an email for a food contest through Bon Appetit magazine, and I just decided to look at the rules and enter the contest. And truthfully, I turned my seared tuna into a burger sitting at the computer because if you're a chef, especially a self-taught chef, you probably don't follow a lot of recipes unless you're following like your great grandmother's recipe or cooking or baking something.
well, I
But
will say I usually follow the recipe the first couple of times I try it, so that I have a
but then you
base,
can
and then
tweak
I can
it and
tweak
make
it.
it your own, right? So for me to write a recipe for something that I threw a hunk of tuna in the bag, I threw in some soy sauce and lime juice and a little meat, I threw in a little ginger and garlic, and I never really measured. So I had to look at the former winning recipes in order to see the ratio between protein and garlic, salt,
hmm
pepper, whatever they were using.
Did you ever think when you started that math was going to be so important?
Never, never, never. And not only that, when I entered this contest, I hit submit, and that was it. I never, I forgot about it. It was in the summer. I had just moved back to Florida. In September, I got a phone call from the PR person at the Sutter Home Winery in California.
Good
Uh,
winery.
Yep, and that's where the contest was held. So it was about 6,500 entries,
Holy
and
smoke!
yep, and it was James McNair who was the head judge,
Ah.
and they automatically get rid of more than half of the entries because of not following the directions precisely. So having been a teacher, that was a good thing for me. Like everything has to be exact. It was very intense. But then they narrowed it down and narrowed it down, narrowed it down. They narrowed it down to 100 recipes. They cooked those 100 recipes, and then they picked 5 in the beef division and 5 in the non-beef, Northwest, Southwest, Northeast, Southeast, Central of the United States. So I was the Southeast finalist in the non-beef division with my black and white sesame crusted ahi tuna burger with Napa slaw and ginger wasabi mayo. And
Oh,
if you Google Phyllis Krupp tuna burger, you'll get my Sun Sentinel article with my recipe.
oh wow. That's amazing. That is really cool. That is
Yeah.
such an amazing story.
Yeah,
And
I
what an
took my
accomplishment.
mom. Oh, it was the most amazing weekend. I had never been to Napa before. I took my mom. It was the end of September. It was the most beautiful time of the year out there. They put us in this cottage that was in the grape yards, like not really open to the public. And then the whole contest took place on the lawn of the Sutter Home Winery after they fed us
Oh,
this amazing dinner Friday night,
wow.
cooked by their chef. And it was, and then they gave us like $150 to go out to dinner the next night. So we couldn't get into, I really wanted to go to French Laundry. We couldn't get into there. I went to another, it was an amazing weekend. It was like 2 days long.
I
That
don't
was
think
it.
you're ever
In
going
and
to be
out.
able to get in the French
No,
Laundry. We
no,
tried to make
especially
a
not like, yeah,
we tried to make a reservation when we were out there, and they were a minimum
yeah,
of six
yeah,
months.
yeah. Or you have to just know somebody.
So,
And yeah, so, but that, I have to say that that was that was definitely the highlight of my cooking. I can't even say career because I was there. I was not there as a professional. Oh, and I'm going to tell you one more thing that came out of that contest. I was just a regular plain old person sitting at my computer entering that contest. In my division, in my non-beef division, there were 5 women. I was one of 5. The woman who won, Ellie Matthews, was a $1 million Pillsbury Bake Off winner.
oh,
The woman who came in, I don't know, second, third, whatever, I know I was 4th place. The woman who came in at another place was going to the Pillsbury Bake Off as a finalist. One of the women was a $100,000 Chicken Council winner, and another woman had won the Sutter Home burger contest with her salmon burger like 2 years prior. I had never entered a food contest in my life. I was like, holy moly, there's people doing this for a living.
I know. If you've ever Googled food competitions, you can
Well,
see.
I get a monthly newsletter now. It's insane how much money they give away.
Well, that's a podcast in and of itself is
Woo,
food
baby, yeah.
contests. I
Yep,
have to think about that. That could be a fun one. But
yep.
I just want to say that I also do I have a YouTube channel, and I have a perfectly seasoned cooking boot camp series on YouTube. And I
And
would
I've seen a couple of episodes and they're great.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm actually going to be recording one today and one tomorrow.
What are you making
Well,
today?
today I'm doing, I'm actually recreating Jacques Pepin's mother's cheese souffle, and it's not a traditional souffle in that you have to fold in gently the egg whites. This you use the entire egg at the very beginning, and oddly enough, not only is it delicious, it still puffs up. It's a little more dense, but you know what it's like to make a souffle. I mean, if you even look cross-eyed at a souffle, it'll
Yes.
deflate right before your eyes. This doesn't, so it
I used
really
to make
works
a
great.
chocolate. I used to make a chocolate souffle for a client every year. That was like their request, and I got pretty good at it. I made a corn souffle once. I've never made a cheese souffle.
Oh, well, you'll have to watch this. This episode will be up, I think, in a couple of weeks. And then
Okay.
tomorrow I'm doing my version of coq au vin, which is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
See, I consider myself to be, even though I never met her in person, I consider myself to be self-taught, but I learned from Julia Child and Jacques Pepin. I watched everything and read everything, and I have to attribute my technique and my knowledge and my love of food not only to my grandmother but to the two of them, because that's
Hmm.
how I learned to cook. So I it's kind of an homage today and tomorrow. So,
Cool.
but the one
Looking
thing I
forward.
want to ask you is I have to figure out how I can do this, but I would love for you to be a guest chef for my perfectly seasoned cooking boot camp, and I think we need to have a
Oh, cool.
we need to have a throwdown.
Throwdown.
We need to
Uh-oh.
have a throwdown, and I have a couple of burgers that I grew up with that I have perfected over the years. So I think we need to have a YouTube throwdown.
Okay.
So we'll
You
figure out.
you you work out the details and let me know. Just give me a little advance notice. That's all.
Okay, we'll do. Well, listen, this has really been fun. If you have any questions, you can contact me at my website, thesilverchef.net. You can also subscribe to my Perfectly Seasoned Boot Camp there and get print recipes. And you can also follow me on Facebook at The Silver Chef. What else? And also, please subscribe to my podcasts on iTunes and Spotify because they're really fun and they're informative, and I enjoy doing them for everyone. And I'd really like to thank my guest, personal chef Phyllis Krupp. Thank you,
Thank
Phyllis.
you. Thank you so much for having me. That was fun.
Oh, you're welcome. Well,
Yeah, I love talking about food and food related stuff all the time.
well, thank you. I'm so glad you were able to be available, and I'll figure out the details for our throwdown.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Okay, well, this is Greg Strahm, and until next time, I hope all your days will be perfectly seasoned.